Hi, friends. Father Scott again. We've seen some terrible things in this past week. The death of George Floyd in Minneapolis at the hands of police, and violence feeding off of that violence, and a cycle of destruction that leaves us just kind of very disheartened and anxious and wondering, where is God in all of this? And we might be tempted to kind of give in to this impulse to violence and to hatred, to to fight fire with fire, so to speak, to become defensive and to abandon the principles on which we've built our lives, the principles that we have learned from Jesus. We might be tempted to forget that everyone is made in the image and likeness of God. We might be tempted to forget that God has shown us that the only way to deal with the evil in the world is by confronting the evil in ourselves and allowing His love to heal it so that we can be instruments of healing. We have to fight the impulse to give in to doing things the way that the world has always done them, by responding to violence with violence, by responding to hateful words with hateful words. In our first reading for today's Mass, again, comes from the second letter of St. Paul to Timothy. And he says, "In fact, all who want to live religiously in Christ Jesus will be persecuted." We have to expect that this life is going to be hard, and it's going to be hard particularly for people who refuse to live by the rules of this world. But Paul says, "But wicked people and charlatans will go from bad to worse, deceivers and deceived." Down that path of hatred and violence, there lies only destruction. And ultimately it leads to nowhere but death. Nowhere but death. Either spiritual or even, as we have seen, physical death. But Jesus has shown us a different way. He says, "But you," St. Paul says, "remain faithful to what you have learned and believed, because you know from whom you learned it, and that from infancy you have known the sacred scriptures, which are capable of giving you wisdom for salvation through faith in Jesus Christ." It's in these times when we are sorely tempted to give in to hate that we need to cling most tightly to the love that we have received from God and that we are called to share in God's name. If we want to see real change in the world, we have to continually be allowing God's change to be working in us. The transformation that God is trying to work in our lives, we have to be continually opening ourselves up to it more and more. It's now more than ever that the world needs to see the sign of love that we are called to be. It's now more than ever that we need to resist the temptation to go back to old ways of doing things. It's now more than ever that we need to hold on to the vision that God has given us in Jesus Christ of what the world can be. In Christ, we have seen that a new way of being has come into the world. And we've been invited to be a part of that. But we can't be a part of it if we keep falling back into old ways of hatred and violence. May God help us to hold on to the faith that we have received. May God help us to hold on to the vision of hope and a future that God has given to us. May we never surrender that hope. May we never surrender that vision until that day when we see Christ face to face and are one with him in glory. God bless you, and I'll be talking to you again soon.